The airport was alive with the steady rhythm of footsteps, rolling suitcases, and hurried voices announcing last-minute gate changes. In the middle of this polished chaos, a young woman stood out for all the wrong reasons. Her sweater hung loose on her fragile body, the color faded from too many washes. Her jeans were frayed at the knees, her sneakers scuffed. She looked like someone carrying too much weight on shoulders that weren't strong enough. Her name was Elena Cruz. At 22, she should have been full of life, chasing dreams. Instead, she carried exhaustion in every bone and shadows beneath her eyes. Her battered purse clung to her side like a lifeline. Inside it was something more valuable than money, more precious than her own health. She clutched it tightly as though the world might snatch it away at any second. But her body had limits. The dizzy spells had grown worse with each passing day, meals had been skipped, and sleep had been a luxury. The terminal lights blurred, footsteps echoed strangely, and the next thing she knew, the floor rushed up to meet her. Elena collapsed. A few feet away, Adrian Hale was striding through the terminal, flanked by his assistant. The name, Hale, carried weight across the city. At 33, Adrian was CEO of Hale International, a multi-billion-dollar empire. He was tall, impeccably dressed, with features as sharp as his reputation. To business rivals, he was ruthless. To the media, he was untouchable. To most people, he was a man to admire from a distance, not to approach. "Mr. Hale, your car is waiting," his assistant began, but Adrian's sharp gaze caught the sight of the girl crumpled on the floor. "Leave her," the assistant muttered. "Security will take care of it." But Adrian stopped. Something about the way she'd fallen, the fragility of her frame, the way she shielded her purse even as she hit the ground, pulled at him. Against his usual instincts, he crouched beside her. Her skin burned with fever. She was breathing, but faintly. "Call medical," Adrian snapped. When his assistant hesitated, he added icily, "Now." As they waited, her purse slipped from her arm. Adrian reached for it, intending only to set it aside, but when it tipped open, something slid out and landed at his feet. It was a photograph. A baby, no more than a year old, smiled at the camera. Bright eyes, soft cheeks, wrapped in a familiar patterned blanket. Adrian froze. His world narrowed to that single photo. His chest tightened, a rush of memories flooding in. That face, he had seen it before, years ago. A ghost from his past he thought he'd buried forever. Elena woke hours later in the airport infirmary, the white walls cold and sterile. Her first panicked thought was of her purse. She sat up quickly, relief flooding her when she found it beside her bed. She checked inside, the photograph was there. But something told her it hadn't gone unnoticed. Finally awake, a voice asked, her breath caught. Standing at the foot of the bed was Adrian Hale, his presence overwhelming the small room. She knew who he was, everyone did. The magazines, the television, the whispers in business circles. But why was he here? "You fainted," Adrian said, his tone calm but unreadable. "You're severely undernourished. Do you even have anyone waiting for you?" Elena bristled. She didn't like pity. "Thank you for helping, but I'll manage." His eyes darkened. "You dropped something earlier." Her heart skipped. "What?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the baby's photo. "This." The color drained from her face. She snatched it from his hand, clutching it tightly. "That's private." Adrian studied her, his jaw set. "Who is the child?" Elena swallowed hard, her pulse racing. "That's none of your business." But Adrian wasn't a man easily dismissed. He leaned closer, his gaze piercing. "Don't lie to me. That child, he looks," his voice faltered, an unusual crack in his controlled demeanor. "He looks like someone I once knew." Elena looked away, tears threatening to spill. She had prayed she'd never cross paths with this man. She had tried to disappear into the city, to start fresh, to protect the one secret she had left. But fate was cruel. "You don't understand," she whispered. "Then explain," Adrian demanded. She shook her head. "If I tell you, everything will change." For a long moment, silence hung between them, heavy and suffocating. Finally, Adrian broke it. "That baby, tell me the truth. Is he mine?" The question cut through her like a blade. Elena's lips parted, but no sound came out. Her heart pounded in her chest. She remembered the past vividly, the brief, impossible love she had shared years ago with a man who had chosen ambition over everything else. She had never told him the result of their short-lived romance. She had walked away, believing he neither wanted nor deserved to know. Now, that man was standing right in front of her. Yes, she whispered, so faintly he almost didn't hear. He's your son. Adrian felt the ground shift beneath him. For years, he had convinced himself he wasn't meant for family, for softness. His empire was his child. But now he realized flesh of his flesh existed somewhere, a baby boy with his eyes and his smile. Where is he? His voice was hoarse, almost desperate. With my neighbor back home, Elena admitted. I came here to find work. To give him a better life. But I couldn't tell you. I was afraid. Afraid of me. Yes, she said firmly, meeting his gaze. You have power, money, everything. I have nothing. If you knew, I thought you'd take him away from me. Adrian inhaled sharply, guilt mingling with fury. He had built his empire on control, but here was something that shattered him, a son he never knew, a woman who had suffered alone. You should have told me, he said, but his tone lacked the sharpness it once carried. Instead, it was laced with regret. Elena's eyes welled up. I didn't want him to grow up thinking he was just a responsibility to you. I wanted him to be loved, even if it was only by me. Her words cut deep. For the first time in years, Adrian Hale, the man the world believed unshakable, felt his eyes sting. The next hours blurred. He arranged a car, food, and even a hotel room for her despite her protests. She wanted to refuse, but exhaustion won. That night, alone in the hotel room, Elena stared at the photo of her son. She worried what Adrian would do now that he knew. Would he claim the boy? Would he uproot their lives? Meanwhile, Adrian sat in his penthouse, the city lights sprawled beneath him, the photo lying on his desk. He couldn't focus on work, couldn't drown himself in numbers and contracts. All he could see was the face of a baby who carried his blood. For years, Adrian Hale had been untouchable. But now, with a single photograph, his world had been cracked wide open. And somewhere inside him, for the first time, a dangerous thought bloomed, maybe it's not too late to change. The airport hummed with life, boarding calls echoing, the rolling of luggage, the rush of hurried footsteps. To most, it was just another day of travel. But to Elena Cruz, it was the battleground of her last reserves of strength. She moved through the terminal slowly, her thin frame swaying under the weight of exhaustion. Her oversized sweater, though meant for warmth, did little to conceal how frail she had become. A battered purse hung tightly against her side, her hand clenched around it with desperate protectiveness. Inside that purse was the only thing that mattered in the world. Elena had skipped meals, endured sleepless nights, and carried burdens that seemed too heavy for someone so young. Her eyes scanned the crowd, searching for a quiet corner where she might catch her breath. But before she could find one, dizziness washed over her like a tide. Her knees buckled, the ground rushed up, gasps echoed around her as she collapsed in the middle of the bustling terminal. A few feet away, Adrian Hale strode with his usual air of command. At 33, Adrian was the kind of man who drew eyes without trying, tall, broad-shouldered, with a face sculpted from determination. He was CEO of Hale International, one of the most powerful business empires in the country. To the media, he was untouchable, ruthless in negotiations, calculated in every move, a man who valued nothing but results. His assistant hurried beside him, murmuring, "Sir, the car is waiting." "We should," but Adrian's sharp gaze had already fallen on the girl who had crumpled just a few steps ahead. "Security will handle her," the assistant said dismissively. Adrian should have agreed. He never paused for strangers. Yet, something about the way she clutched her purse even as she fell tugged at him. Against his instincts, he stepped forward. Kneeling beside her, he brushed a strand of dark hair from her pale face. Her skin burned with fever. Her lips moved faintly, whispering something he couldn't catch. "She needs help," Adrian muttered, his voice low but firm. "Call medical." The assistant scurried off, leaving Adrian alone with the girl. As he shifted her purse to the side, something slipped out and landed on the polished airport floor. Adrian's hand stilled. It was a photograph. He picked it up. A baby's face smiled back at him, chubby cheeks, wide eyes that sparkled with innocence, a small fist curled around a blanket. For the first time in years, Adrian Hale froze. His pulse hammered in his ears as he stared at the image. That child, there was something hauntingly familiar about him. Elena woke to the sterile brightness of the airport infirmary. Her throat was dry, her body heavy, but her first instinct was to reach for her purse. She exhaled shakily when she felt its worn leather against her fingertips. "Awake?" a deep voice asked. Her head snapped up, and her heart nearly stopped. Adrian Hale stood at the foot of her bed, his suit sharp even in this unflattering light, his presence overwhelming. She had seen his face in magazines, on television, in the whispers of people who admired or feared him. But never this close. "You fainted," Adrian said, his tone steady but unreadable. "You need food, rest, maybe more than that." Elena pushed herself up slowly. "Thank you, but I'll manage." His eyes narrowed. "Will you? Traveling alone, half-starved. You could have died out there." Her hands tightened protectively around her purse. She didn't like the way he was looking at her, not with coldness, but with curiosity. As though she carried a secret he was determined to uncover. And then he said it. "You dropped something earlier." Her breath caught. "What?" Adrian reached into his pocket and drew out the photograph. The world seemed to tilt around Elena. She shot forward, snatching it from his hand. "That's private," she whispered fiercely. Adrian's jaw flexed. His eyes, usually so detached, were sharp with something else, recognition. "Who is the child?" Elena shook her head, clutching the photo to her chest. "That's none of your business." But Adrian didn't look away. He leaned closer, his voice low and edged with something dangerous. "Don't lie to me. That child, he looks like," he stopped himself, biting back the words. Elena turned her face away, but the tremor in her hands betrayed her. Adrian's heart pounded in a way it hadn't in years. For the first time, the man who thought he had left his past behind found it staring him in the face, in the form of a photograph, a fragile girl, and a truth he wasn't sure he wanted.